Paris, the Midwest, this is your Daily Detroit, sharing what to know and where to go for Wednesday, November 2nd, 2022. I'm Jer Staves.
And I am Cheyenne Oserini. Jer, we have a lot to talk about.
Yes, we do, and we're going to do it after we thank our members on Patreon. Each month, you help keep this show and our newsletter going, and it is much appreciated. You can join people like Jonathan, Andrew, Len, Martin, and Nick at patreon.com/dailydetroit. That's patreon.com/dailydetroit. All right, this first story is fun, and I feel like I need to talk about it because, fun fact, Cheyenne, do you know the top 5 artists that Spotify says our audience of thousands of people over there listens to?
I have no idea, Jer, but now I need to know?
Right, it's like a fact that you didn't think that you needed to have the information. I have it for you right here. Number 5, the Arctic Monkeys. Number 4, Blink-182, which I think kind of tracks with the age demographic of a lot of our audience.
I think so, yeah.
3, Drake. I don't get it, but okay. 2, Harry Styles.
Okay.
And number 1, Taylor Swift.
You know, I'm not surprised at that, but also it's kind of surprising because of our demographic. I don't know.
But you know, Taylor Swift is a huge artist, and people all over seem to love her. And that's why I have to tell you this news tie-in, because if you didn't know, T-Swift is coming to Ford Field in Detroit on June 10th, and the local internet is abuzz about it. Tickets are for sale at 10 a.m. November 15th. So are you going? And what is your favorite Taylor track, Shy?
I'm not a Swiftie,
Okay.
but if her song is on the radio, I will listen to it. I will say that I have 2 songs off of her Lover album that I do really like. You Need to Calm Down. 1, because that music video is awesome, and I love all of those drag queens. And 2, The Man, because if I were a man, I wouldn't be bossy. I would be assertive.
So you're not a Swiftie at all, but yet you know lyrics.
Well, that's not necessarily a lyric, but I have been called bossy before. But if I were a man, I would just be assertive.
Fair. And are you going?
Not unless my nieces wanted to go and their mom couldn't take them. Because I don't have that kind of money, Jer.
What kind of money are we talking about here?
So basic bottom tier tickets are $49, which is reasonable. But then it can go up to $449 per ticket. That's even before you get resellers up in there.
That's like a flight.
I could do so much things with $449. And then if you want to do the VIP treatment, the highest level is $899.
But I mean, if you're the ultimate T-Swift fan.
I mean, if my child came to me and said, Mom, I really want to go see Taylor Swift and I want the VIP treatment, that's almost $1,000. That's only for 1 ticket. Like, I get it. People will pay it. I can't pay it, but I know other people can. And good for you. Good for you. So, what about you, Jer?
Okay, before anyone says anything, I saw Pink and Justin Timberlake at Joe Louis Arena some years ago. So I have a pretty open mind on what I'm going to go to. And honestly, it was a great show. Justin Timberlake was a great showman in the round. Pink, amazing acrobatics. I didn't know I was going until like 3 hours before. And I'm the kind of guy, like, I will go because it's an adventure. And I am not a Swiftie myself either, but I do respect the heck out of her impact. I have only 2 T-Swift songs favorited out of my thousands because I'm one of those people, I like heart everything on Spotify. One is one of yours, and the second, and honestly, I like it more, and this probably betrays some things, it's Love Story. I know, I'm ashamed.
Don't be ashamed. We all have guilty pleasures. So was that like a mixtape pick or something?
I do not remember. It's been so long, but now you know something new about me.
It must have been to impress a girl. So there was a really big announcement that happened recently, and I really want to talk about it, Jer.
But was it big?
I mean, supposedly, the city of Highland Park is getting $10 billion invested through a public-private partnership, and they would use some of the money to pay off the city's overdue water bills.
Oh, Like that one. Okay.
Yeah.
So this is the one where the anonymous philanthropist, supposedly,
Yeah.
allegedly,
We don't know who it is.
there's a press release that went out. Some people bought into it. Some people went for the spectacle. Others on social media shared it like it's gospel. But do you remember back in the day when there were press releases for developments and things and it just seemed like air?
Mm-hmm.
It was a pretty regular thing 10 years ago, 12 years ago. And I don't want to necessarily pin it on Dan Gilbert. It was pretty much pre all the Dan Gilbert stuff when we started to realize what a development announcement looks like.
Right.
Yeah, this one from late last week that's all the buzz on social media. I'm going to judge that this one is sus. I'm going to say really sus.
I tend to kind of agree with you because we don't know anything about who it's going to be. So my favorite quote, Jer, is from the Bridge Detroit article about this from the Highland Park's current outgoing mayor. He will be leaving at the end of the year, Hubert Yap. His quote was, "I'd love to have $10 billion in the city. I would love to have that. That's a lot of money. Is that coming from Iran? Is it coming from Russia? Is it coming from my Uncle Ron? What I mean is, we need to know who's financing this show."
Uncle Ron or Uncle Vladimir or Uncle...
I don't know.
This is... All right. I ignored covering this announcement for a few reasons. And one... this release did not pass the smell test for me. And people have got their own motivations to do things. They've got to hit deadlines. They got to get a certain number of visitors. I get it. But I've gotten press releases for major organizations. I've written press releases in my past for organizations. And none of them feel like this one, talking about the blood of Christ and things like that. Not for this level, right?
Mm-hmm.
There may be religious things involved, but it doesn't go to the front. I would say that anonymous gifts like this, too, are really rare. When you're talking about this amount of money, people want their name on it. And also, you need community buy-in. Even if this was $1 billion, we talked about the Lakeside project yesterday. Yeah. I mentioned it on the show. That's $1 billion.
Mm-hmm.
1/10 of this, and we know way more, right?
Yeah.
This, you need community buy-in. There has to be a process with this. And doing this with an anonymous donor does not build trust.
Mm-mm.
Another thing, the numbers are all wrong. A philanthropist coming in, if Bill Gates or Bezos' ex-wife, Mackenzie, wanted to pay the water bills, I think it's $21 million last I looked to the Great Lakes Water Authority.
Mm-hmm.
I might believe it if it's not anonymous. I could see a foundation doing, I could see that. That to me adds up.
Yeah.
$10 billion from Uncle Ron, I do not know.
And the other thing I want to point out is oh, we're going to pay off this water bill and then there's going to be some other developments. And it's there's no actual details to what those
The Great Lakes Water Authority didn't hear about it.
Yeah.
Nobody talked to anybody. Last I looked, Mackenzie Scott gave away less than $13 billion total to everything. If you don't know, that's the ex-wife to Jeff Bezos that's doing all the philanthropy. That's 13 total to everything. Dan Gilbert is worth something like 16 billion, something over that. I think it's 16.8, in total.
Right.
This is nonsense math.
Yeah.
You need to understand scale here. $10 billion feels completely absurd to me. If you go to the developer's website, it doesn't work. This developer doesn't have that kind of track record for the experience of scale to do something like this. These things don't add up.
Yeah. And a press announcement for $10 billion and they have folding chairs and a banner. Jared, you and I have been to press events.
For far smaller things.
That
actually happened.
Yeah. But even still, when we went to the press event for the Meyer groundbreaking down on Jefferson, they had tents. They
Whole
had
Foods?
The Whole Foods for all
that
of these.
Wasn't $1 billion.
No. And also we've gone to big projects, groundbreakings, right? And press announcements. Hudson's. Monroe blocks.
Well, that one hasn't happened yet.
No, that hasn't. But I thought I'd
the
throw
renderings
it out.
Yeah, it's true. But that gets to my last point. When a release says from the office of, that's always a red flag to me. When I see a press release and they're office of, and there's just a bunch of long list of random people, another red flag to me. If it's $10 billion, every single elected official that can is going to be there. This is an election year. Governor Gretchen Whitmer would be showing up handing out candy. Like Wayne County's exec Warren Evans, he'd be like showing up with flowers for everyone with bells on and giant signs, right?
Yeah.
Like everybody would be there. Like this is 2 battery plants. I drove by a battery plant under construction on the way down to Memphis. It's like 2 of these.
Right. I think you bring up a good point. If this was actually legit, I know it's supposed to be anonymous, but we would know who, what, when, where, and why.
Mm-hmm.
And we have none of those. We have a mystery person, and no one in power knows anything.
You want to move $1 million around somebody from some private guy, you can do that, right?
Yeah.
Like the Boblo boat we covered a while ago, that's an all-private project. That can pretty much kind of run under the radar. But $10 billion, that doesn't move like that.
No.
People pay attention to that kind of money.
And finally, I just want to say that this whole thing is kind of gross to me because the people of Highland Park have had really like horrible things happen to them.
Their streetlights got repossessed.
Right. This city deserves and needs investment and love and support. But these false hopes and broken promises for years.
I mean, this is a Metro Detroit thing, too. Like, I don't want to single out Highland Park. Remember that movie studio that was supposed to have all this stuff happening?
Exactly.
That worked out great. The city almost went bankrupt.
Exactly. So, I mean, I know that this isn't real. I mean, if it is, great.
But people are talking about it on social media like it is. And there are some social media outlets that are kind of like doing the, well, they said kind of thing to get the clickety clicks and getting people all. I really encourage people to like look at multiple sources and kind of place it together for themselves about stuff because like a lot of places, they just need as much audience as possible
right.
to make their bills. And so they're going to cover this stuff in as nebulous as a way possible to make you think that something's going to happen that is most likely not going to happen.
Right. So are you saying we need to do some lateral reading?
I do.
Okay.
I do. There's actually a thing in Crash Course, right?
Yes.
What is it?
Media literacy.
Yes. Learn about lateral reading. It is a great, great skill. So there's a quick update on the proposed restaurant ordinance in the city of Detroit we talked about a few weeks ago. Remember that one, Shai?
I do remember that. I also remember that it had been tabled.
It had been tabled. It would have mandated restaurants show a placard in their window or visible spot out front for their inspection status. So green, yellow, red. It got amended a bit with some input from business leaders, but it is now dead. Like dead.
Man, like a parrot dead?
It's a Norwegian blue. Monty Python fans will get that reference. Only 3 council members voted for this amended ordinance proposed by Scott Benson. This would have mirrored cities like New York, Chicago, and Columbus that are kind of dining destinations. It's clear to me with these votes that council actually like had some switch when it came to who was going to vote for what. I am not surprised this failed, but I think this might have some long-term consequences.
Jer, I know that our newsletter readers and listeners, how they feel about this. And it was about 90% of them were in strong support for diners.
But a Detroit News poll said that 2 out of 3 restaurant owners were against it, and arguments included needing support after COVID and worries that it would hurt Black restaurant owners, which is a large concern in the city of Detroit.
So I hear those arguments, but I don't really think it's a good look because like 5%, according to Councilman Benson, would have yellow cards. So that's a really small amount of restaurants.
But you don't want to be at one of those 5%.
Well, no, you don't. But also food safety is important. You know, I'm going to play the mom card. I want to know where I'm going. I mean, obviously, we already know like the whole Lafayette story. Like, I know what's going to happen when I walk into Lafayette. I understand. But like, if I'm expecting to go somewhere and you think that they have a clean kitchen and they don't, that's a big deal. I don't want anybody to get sick.
Well, it's the story in 2022 that we have gotten the most feedback on. This is an opportunity, I think, if somebody were to do some sort of third-party verification, or if some suburb like Oakland County, because I think that's county-level inspections, they were to do something like this, I think that they would have a market advantage. And I want Detroit restaurants to do really well, but I also hear loud and clear my like listeners who, of course, lots of people are adventurous, want to do things, but I think a bare minimum for folks is food safety. And this hemming and hawing, I just know from the feedback, like I'm an adventurous guy. I've eaten in some places.
Me too.
And you know this, but I just hear the listeners loud and clear where this gives me like the heebie-jeebies. I'm interested to hear what you think. dailydetroit@gmail.com.
So, Jer, we kind of have an update on, we're just bringing all kinds of development news and all kinds of stuff.
And not necessarily the cheeriest.
No, not really. So, you know how they've been building that giant fulfillment center at the state fairgrounds?
Yes, you can see it rise. There's multiple parts to this project.
Yeah.
Wasn't there supposed to be like 1,100 jobs tied to it?
Yeah, like 1,100 jobs.
I think 1,200 in total. They've hired
100.
Yeah, I saw something across my inbox on that. So what's up?
There's a pause on it opening until like sometime in 2023.
Oh.
So they've rushed to get this thing built, and then they're putting the brakes on it.
What are some of the reasons?
Really, we're going to go out there and we're going to say inflation, and consumers are not spending a lot of money right now because nobody has any money because inflation.
Well, I don't think nobody has any money. I think some people have money.
So, okay. So I'm being facetious here, but Amazon is cooling things down a bit because of projected sales, specifically for the holidays. They're kind of like putting the brakes on a little bit. This also includes the 5 other Michigan projects that they had going on that they've either postponed or canceled altogether. That was reported back, I think, in September of this year.
I was wondering if Detroit was going to be a part of this one.
And they've also cut about $1 billion in operating cost in the third quarter.
Now, Amazon's like the strong behemoth of online retail and all of that. And I guess to me, this is a little bit worrying. I want to see Detroiters have jobs. I mean, I know unemployment is kind of historically low still.
Yeah.
But it's worrying not because necessarily of Amazon, but because once development timelines start to move, they can start to move further. Now that they've built it, I mean, that's great. And then on the other side, they didn't get incentives for this thing.
No, I mean, and that's a good thing.
And there's supposed to be a transit center coming out of this.
Yeah.
Oh, no.
There's bids out for a contractor on that. They're planning on turning the old dairy cattle barn from the state fairgrounds
That's
into
right. We
the
talked
transit
about that.
center.
Yeah, we talked about that on the show.
So that was approved about a year ago. And at the time, officials said that it would be completed by winter of 2022.
All right, and that is it for today. Hopefully we get a future timeline on that. Thanks so much for listening to your Daily Detroit. If you've got a story idea, someone we should talk to, dailydetroit@gmail.com. I'm Jer Stays.
And I'm Cheyenne Oserini.
Remember that you are somebody.
And we'll see you around Detroit.